Boy, the English language is fascinating, isn't it, Donald?
It absolutely is, David. And as an English major, I know that better than anyone. Other than English professors and historians of linguistic studies, of course. What do you find fascinating about it in particular, though?
Personally, I love the variety in word sizes. Some words are short and simple, like the and is. But then others are Brobdingnagian giants like Brobdingnagian.
Brobdingnagian? Where did you ever learn such a huge word?
I just used our RitWit-approved, RitWit-sponsored SUPER Thesaurus Machine. While normal thesauruses are good for simply finding new ways to word the same things, the SUPER Thesaurus Machine gives you only the biggest and longest words, turning your stories into the perfect amateurish pieces of writing trying desperately to sound cool and sophisticated by feigning intelligence. Try it out as I turn this SUPER Thesaurus Machine on.
Hello, inquisitive writing user. I am the SUPER Thesaurus Machine.
Whoa, that's a neat piece of hardware. Let's see. SUPER Thesaurus Machine. Give me the super words for hot, as in temperature-wise.
Hot. Adjective. Super synonyms. Igneous. Decalescent. Thermogenic. Used in a sentence. The temperature outside is very igneous, decalescent, and thermogenic.
Whoa, that's so cool! I'll become a proper Paolini with this kind of writing.
Try another, Donald. There is still a protracted amount of time left in the day.
Of course! SUPER Thesaurus Machine. Give me the super words for hot, as in attractive-wise.
Hot. Adjective. Informal. Super synonyms. Voluptuous, resplendent, pulchritudinous. Used in a sentence. Whoa, that is the most pulchritudinous babe I've ever seen.
Wow, I'm gonna go to a bar and call some girl pulchritudinous right now. That'll definitely get me a date.
Sounds like a successful night waiting to happen. Another, Donald! Another!
Yes, another! SUPER Thesaurus Machine. Give me the super words for hot. As in popularity-wise.
Hot. Adjective. Informal. Super synonyms. Newfangled. Illustrious. Venerated. Used in a sentence. The RitWit is the most venerated podcast on the market, with the most resplendent hosts covering the most decalescent writing topics.
Whoa! This is the coolest machine ever! I can't wait to write books full of words like these that'll force people to respect me as a writer. I mean, they definitely wouldn't mock my amateurish ways with such sesquipedalian loquaciousness.
Now you're getting it, Donald! And you understand why the RitWit approves this machine. And you can write such stories too, listeners, with the SUPER Thesaurus Machine. Guaranteed to bestow writers with proper embourgeoisement.
Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of the RitWit, the official sister show of the prehistoric podcast Paleobites. Or Paleobites is a sister show of this, even though they're both hosted mainly by men, but...
Well, I mean, you know, the terminology being what it is, it would be weird to call it the brother podcast, because I've never heard of that term
We're
before.
all the
but it's really
fraternity
cool,
of podcasts.
One big happy or not family.
We're Rit, the podcast down there. Rit, Alpha, Rit, Alpha, Rit. And Paleo Sigma Bites.
Anyways, it's really exciting to hear that Donald has stretched his wings into
my pterodactyl wings.
Into an arena that is so up his alley. Obviously, since he's published 4 freaking books about dinosaurs. If you want, check them out on Amazon.com.
I know a thing or two about dinosaurs.
I know a little bit about a lot of things, but I don't know much about dinosaurs.
Most of what you know about dinosaurs comes from reading my books. So.
Well, okay. Most of the various species that I know comes from reading your books, but it's not like I didn't have some kind of fascination with dinosaurs.
True. It's not like you immediately go into
mostly the popular ones. So Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus. I'll stop listing for now.
Yeah, those are the 3 that people know. Throw in Velociraptor maybe, and you're good.
Yeah, we'll move on from there. But anyway, it's something where Donald gets a chance to really showcase just how much he loves those creatures, and the field is constantly changing because new information is being discovered all the time. So it's really exciting.
Some of them are going to be about concepts. We're thinking about doing a podcast. Actually, no, I'll mention this in the later when I talk about what we have writ. But first part, we're doing a bit of a grab bag, kind of putting in what we did, I did last week with a friend of the show, Laura. And so, and that one I already sort of said what I'll rip off from this month, sort of. I don't know, listen to it to find out. But
yeah, I still need to do that. Oops.
Yeah, come on, David, you're part of this show.
I haven't listened to Paleo Bites either. So
you're not part of that show, so that's more forgivable.
All right, fair enough. But it wasn't a part of that episode, okay? Jeez. Anyway.
All right. So instead of me talking about what we will rip off this month, this is a new segment of the show. What's David will rip off from this month?
Exactly. It's going to be this brand new permanent thing. No, I'm kidding. I have been on a kick recently, what I'm terming Ultra Month.
Ooh.
This has been ample time for me to watch various entries in the long-running Ultra series, and from those various shows, obviously, some ideas crop up as they do.
Ultra sounds like it's compensating for something. Just to remind everyone,
compensating for the fact that their human hosts can grow into massive Ultraman.
Oh, I guess if you could look at it that way, yeah.
Yeah.
There's peanut butter on this cup, and I don't know why. I just smelled this podcast.
Apropos
I know
of
there's
nothing.
a weird goop of stuff down here at the bottom. I put my finger on it, scooped it up. It's peanut butter. Where did that come from?
Oh, apropos of nothing. This is totally how we live our lives, listeners. Anyway, one that is not particularly attached to a specific show, unless the Ultra didn't have a human host for some reason.
No.
There is a fighter using different techniques in their transformed state to keep people off the scent of their secret identity.
Speaking of scent, this peanut butter is really good. Sorry, go on.
I think it'd be really cool to dive into the nuance of that. Is there some kind of conflict when they have to switch between modes or fighting styles, particularly if those styles aren't compatible?
I do like dual modes sort of things, in video games as well as writing.
Well, sure, but this is something where the appearance is so vastly different, nobody would know unless you happen to give a similar tick.
Oh.
So instead of giving that tell, you have a different style of fighting, but obviously with martial arts in general, there are so many variants and branches that sometimes you're focused on completely different things, which could make it easier, but if the way you use your hands in one style and the way you use them in another style are completely different, and you happen to forget, I'm supposed to be in this mode right now.
Right.
I think that would be really interesting to explore. So I'd like to use that somewhere, but alas, unless it's my alter ego who can learn martial arts very quickly thanks to his actual superpower.
Your alter ego. We haven't talked about that, have we?
Well, not officially, but anyways.
Find out about it on our Patreon whenever that shows up.
I keep trying to do this as an incentive for you to actually do this, but you make nothing of it. Anyways.
All right, go on.
The next idea comes from an anniversary project of an older series, referred to by fans as Heisei Ultra 7. The shortest version, Heisei, is the imperial era Japan just left this year. We've traded it in for Reiwa.
Is it like a calendar sort of thing, or is it based off of rulers?
Well, it's based off of the ruler. The emperor will be known henceforth as Heisei. So the era he reigns is the Heisei era.
Oh. So, is it
now the current emperor will be, after he is no longer on the throne, he will be henceforth referred to as Reiwa.
Okay.
Which is the point of the name. So
is this like England, where there's a monarchy, or I guess in this way, like an empire sort of monarchy in a way, but that's more for show, and there's a different other government, or is he still the head of the government?
It's mostly a figurehead position.
Kind of like the Queen of England.
It is inherited by birthright, but obviously they are not the sole person in charge of making all these important decisions.
Okay.
There is a parliament here.
Okay. Just like in England.
Usually referred to as the Diet.
Anyways, all right, continue.
Yep. And I saw this thing that got me thinking about a really very hyper-specific idea, but I want to use it. I want a villain who disguises as some, like, handyman to infiltrate the base of the good guys and release a pollen that activates when you drink water, causing amnesia.
Ouch. That'd be annoying.
That'd be annoying. Just trying to find ways to eradicate something like that. Just trying to find ways to stop it. It's exciting. Like, I practically want to write the thing already.
Especially if, like, you're doing fight scenes and you're like, oh, God, this has gone so long. Oh, look, a drinking fountain. I need that.
I need water.
Wait, who am I?
Who am I? Why am I here? Yeah, exactly. So, it'd be really interesting to work your way out of that, I think.
Yeah.
However, I have not just been watching. I have finally taken the opportunity to read through the legendary classic, The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas.
Oh, yes.
It's a very long book. The thing is like over 600 pages, I think, even in paperback form.
Nice.
And I have not gotten through all of it yet. I'm about 2/3 of the way through or something like that. And major credit to the translation team for attempting to keep the spirit within the original French dialogue and trying to translate that for English speaking.
Well, as a friend of the skits of the show would tell you, this was a good example of a story cooked by Cuisine de Histoire. So.
D'histoire, yes, indeed. Thanks, Gaston.
Yes.
Being realistic, that story was written by a French author.
Yes,
so,
they cook their stories.
Of course, Gaston might have been really mad at Dumas had they been contemporaries. I don't know. Anyway,
maybe.
It
as I
makes
can't
me feel
cook
better.
this story, it is too long. Oh, that's Italian. But I can't cook this story. It is a bit too long.
Please tell me your next. Please tell me.
It's me, Mario.
For Gaston, I was about to make a different joke that Gaston's suddenly going to bring a friend whose name is Luigi or something.
I'm a Luigi, a crayon de papier, and I cook these
What?
stories.
His brother? No. Luigi's
I am his brother, and yet I am an Italian for some reason. Well, he cooks his stories. I put them in the pasta. I have taken over for the Crayon de Papier's pizzeria. Anyways.
Patreon, here we come.
I make such stereotypes.
The
I'm
mishaps.
so offensive.
The mishaps of Luigi and his brother Gaston. Anyway.
What were their parents like?
One was Italian and the other was French. That's all we need to say.
And one of them got the French genes and the other got the Italian.
All of them, 100%.
Yeah, genetics is weird, I tell you.
Anyway, can I get to the point I was trying to make about Three Musketeers? It certainly makes me feel better about how long-winded some of my nano things get.
Yeah.
The thing I'd like to rip from it, actually, is how not to beat around the bush with dialogue. Bizarre coming from me, limiting myself, but here we go.
Bizarre coming from this podcast where we just spent 5 minutes talking about an Italian brother of Gaston.
All of a sudden, Gaston's going to have like an international family. This is going to be bad. Anyway.
As long as they're all white accents, so I can still do them without being offensive.
Yeah, I couldn't claim to do any accent that came from somewhere with...
You might be able to get away with Japanese, but probably not.
I might be able to get away with English, but I don't know about truly Japanese. Yeah. But anyhow, as Donald mentioned, these next few episodes, including the one that I was not available for, so thank you very much, Flora, for helping out with that.
Yes.
Are technically a random grab bag of topics. None of these really belonged together in a set.
Yeah.
Was the issue. And so, we're talking about things to do.
Well, we've had these ideas on our list.
Had these ideas for a long time, and it's just like, you know what? Why don't we use these? We don't have a good set idea, so let's just get rid of some of these excess.
They've been in there for a while, so might as well, right?
Yeah. And the first one we're doing, I say the first. The second in this particular set of, now it's going to become 5 episodes, small spoiler alert, is a particular favorite of Donald's, comic relief. We've talked about writing comedies before and how to be funny in a natural manner, but this time we're talking about how to use comic relief in any story, not just in comedy.
Right, exactly. There's plenty of dramas that have quite a few funny moments, and
As we'll discuss in a little bit more in depth too. To start off, though, what are the ways that we, meaning David and Donald, but I'll let Donald go first.
Yes.
Use comic relief in our own writing.
Well, me, I put an Italian man, I put it in the story, and it's some random points. No, I just really wanted to do that, actually. It's so fun.
Is it because of your Italian heritage, sir?
I am the quarter Italian, which is more Italian than anything else. I need to cook the pasta.
Next thing it'll be
and a bit of meatballs.
Meatballs. That is a spicy meatball.
Oh, that is just... if you do not like me doing this accent, suck my big fat meatballs. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say.
Oh, wow!
I'm cutting that out. But it's...
I hope so.
Or not. No, I will. Okay.
Or not. Who knows? We'll find out. Oh, my God.
I've always loved writing humor. As anyone who ever listens to a second of me on this podcast knows, like the last few seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
But
whether they're cut out or not, right?
But I also, believe it or not, enjoy balancing it with dramatic stuff in order to make them both hit.
What? Really? I had no idea.
It's me, Italian pussy. I've been shot. I'm dying. Tell my brother Gaston that I love him.
Oh, jeez.
See, dramatic. It makes it hit harder.
Yeah, so hard. We only introduced him like 5 minutes ago, and he's already dead. Yeah, how dramatic is that?
He's coming back. That accent's too fun to get rid of.
All right. Well, anyway.
For my Mechazoic series.
Buy it on Amazon.com.
I've used comic relief to help readers ease their way into the story's frankly ridiculous concept. So if I don't take it too seriously, then others will be more willing to accept the idea. I also balance this humor with earnestness and a genuine passion for the ideas presented. Like, dinosaurs,
That's why you're doing paleobites, right?
Which is a hard balance, but I hope I pulled it off. Like having earnestness and sort of laughing at myself. That sounds like a hard balance to do.
Please let us know, listeners. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes. Comic relief, when used well, also helps characters seem more endearing. It makes it easier for readers to like them, so that's what I try to do. Finally, sometimes I use comic relief as a way to lull the readers into a false sense of security before hitting them hard with a dramatic bit.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm dead, and then my family also is dead. Like that,
There is the time and place for comedy, and of course I probably mentioned this when we did that episode, but the two famous theater masks.
Oh yeah, is it Triumph and Agony? Is that what it's called?
I don't think agony. I think it's comedy and tragedy.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the classic Greek sort of definitions where a comedy ends in a wedding, a tragedy ends in a funeral.
Tragedy ends in a funeral.
So,
anyways, as far as I do, most of my comic relief, such that it is, as my self-inflated importance of it, comes from character interactions. Being someone who lives and laughs out loud a ton.
Right.
I mean, did you not hear, literally a minute ago, or ever listen to this podcast?
You would like to laugh a lot. I hear you should have stuffed your mouth with the meatballs to stop the laughing from now. I need to stop that. I know it's annoying, but it's so damn fun.
It's kind of like talking with a lisp.
I know, once you start, you can't stop. So let's not stop.
Once you get started, it's really hard to stop.
Oh, now I really want to do that Italian voice with a lisp. Don't do it.
Is that even possible? Don't do it.
Nope,
don't do it.
Not gonna do it.
Save it for Patreon. I believe that every character can have an interaction that will inspire laughter.
Yes.
Either from someone else in the scene or from the audience themselves.
Right.
However, since there is no such thing as accounting for individual tastes, I just write things that I find amusing in the hopes that, they have good vibes reading the rest.
Right. That's kind of what I do. Like, if you don't find it funny, then other people won't either. You can't write comedy without yourself thinking it's funny. So, that's not genuine. People will notice that.
Fair enough. On a semi-related note, there's a reason I tend to laugh far more than I make other people laugh.
I think you make other people laugh. Well, pretty good.
I make other people laugh by laughing, not because what I say is so amusing.
I don't know, this is a terrible example, but that eulogy you did at your father's funeral was pretty funny.
Well, and I tried adding jokes in there because not only was it for, my benefit to smile about it and remember positively things that happened, but also to show that, it doesn't have to be sad.
Right, and
as I said, there's a place for comedy.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Always.
That's kind of what we're talking about here. Even in dramatic moments, there's a place for comedy, so...
It's just a matter of not overexposing that. We'll talk more about that in a bit when we get to our next questions, but to finish up here, for me, comic relief is best used sparingly.
Yes.
Lighten the mood temporarily, steal a scene here or there, but if the whole thing is comedy, it simply guarantees that not all your jokes work.
That is the risk of having like one of those a joke a minute sort of thing or a joke a second sort of thing that some movies and books do. It's like, you're running the risk, not all of them are going to land.
Exactly. More to come on that particular note in the next question, so let's go ahead and move on to that, which is, what are the best situations to use comic relief in a more dramatic story?
I think it can help the readers care more for the characters if they got a sense of humor about them. Like, it keeps the story grounded in a way, since even in dark or dramatic times, people make jokes. Soldiers tell each other jokes all the time. It's how people cope with drama sometimes. With trauma and drama.
Well, drama and trauma. It's one of those things like gallows humor. You're close to dying, and suddenly the whole concept seems hilarious.
You heard Orson Welles not Orson Welles.
Orson Welles.
Oscar Wilde's last words. They're both O.W., okay?
Yeah, I was about to say their initials are the same. But no, I can't say I'm familiar with that.
His last words, he was dying in his bedroom, and his last words were, "Either this wallpaper goes, or I go."
Wow. Critic to the end, sir. Anyway.
My last words are probably going to be like, "Is my wife here? Are my children here? Then why is the light on in the kitchen?"
Yeah, that joke. I had a feeling you were going there.
Yeah.
Of course,
actually, no,
of course, astute listeners who know more about our personal backgrounds might realize it'd be very, very strange projecting Donald to have a wife, considering
I was going to say that
about the topic. Anyway,
it'll be you probably.
Sorry,
for the financial benefits.
Okay.
Actually, no. I found out that with the financial benefits, getting married doesn't help that much. So never mind. That'd be the only reason for us to marry.
Anyways,
what was I saying? I think a good way to use comic relief.
Drama. I think that's drama. We need some comedy here.
I think a good way to use comic relief in a more dramatic story is to have it a little ways after a character undergoes such trauma, though, to show the readers they're trying to cope and move on.
Sure.
If this also helps the mood go up and down rather than just remain in a constant dramatic lull.
Something about coping, you mentioned that, but coming to mind is a phrase that your worst decisions make the best stories.
Oh yeah, that's conflict. Conflict comes from bad decisions.
The reason I bring that up though is because when you are going through these things and you're embarrassed about what happened in the moment, you don't really like it, but over time you kind of get some distance, gain some perspective, and when you recall it, whether you liked the event or not, you can still kind of put a smile on your face.
Right.
Now, I'm not trying to compare this to traumatic events, but drama in general, you might eventually end on looking upon it favorably.
Right.
There is that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Of an example. When Penny died, I posted my cockatiel Penny, my old cockatiel Penny. When he died earlier this year, I think I did good in trying to cope. We had those things. You and I went to that baseball game. You and I went to the theme park. Yep. And I had some good ways being like, you know what, this sucked. I went through some trauma, but I'm trying my best to cope. I'm trying my best to figure out ways to You know, like I rode every roller coaster except for the kiddie roller coaster at
because we couldn't go on it.
I couldn't.
With 2 people.
I was really thinking about borrowing a kid and being like, "You're my son for 5 minutes."
Do you remember when we were there and you had brought that idea up, and there was, I think, probably his mother behind us saying, "Yeah, probably not a good idea."
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I won't ride the kiddie coaster. But anyways, I rode every roller coaster. I never do that at theme parks, but I was like, no, I'm gonna thrill the despair out of me, you know?
Well, and you know how people handle grief is different. We did that episode, so please take a listen to it. That was during our grieving period when Penny had just passed away,
and when
my father had just passed away.
Yep, and
you know,
my dog passed away, my uncle passed away. It's been a rough year, guys.
Well, I mean, for everybody, every day somebody's died.
Yeah.
Somebody is being born. It's just the way of life.
Yes.
That said, you know, coping mechanisms being what they are is in your stories too.
Yeah.
In your stories too. Some people are going to have fun with them. Like, in our most emotional moments in that grief episode, we were still laughing.
No, we still made plenty of jokes. Like, that's still a pretty funny episode, I think, so...
well, okay. I'm not sure what to do about a joke quota or a... excuse me, not quota.
It's probably has the
quotient.
least jokes
Like
out of
how
any of our
much is
episodes,
humor,
but...
how much is humor? You know, and so everybody experiences this. They try to lighten their own spirits by using comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is capable of this.
Right.
Even if they're the most self-proclaimed unfunny person in the world, they're so capable of trying to look with positive feelings on a situation that has been really hard for them to come.
You know, I think that's kind of a paradox, or if you say you're the most unfunny person in the world, that's kind of a joke.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know about paradox. I think you're looking for oxymoron.
That's kind of, I'm just like, it kind of is a self-defeating prophecy, where you're like, you can't be, if you say you're the unfunniest person in the world.
Still not a paradox, but...
I don't know.
There's always someone better there's always someone better at you, and there's always somebody worse than you at something.
I don't know, there's some people who are the best or the worst at something, but they're rare.
But not everything is the point.
Yeah.
Even if they're the best in one particular area, they won't be the best in all of them.
I'd like to think I'm the
won't
best
be the worst
person
in
who's
all
ever
of
written
them.
a story called Megazoic.
I'm pretty darn sure he's the only person that has been able to publish a thing called Megazoic.
I have Googled it. Yes, I am.
So there's that.
Anyways.
Sorry, back to the answer of comic relief in a dramatic story. Variety is the spice of life, or at least all the garnish shakers I've encountered seem to quote this somehow.
Right.
What in the world?
What did you write here?
I don't know. I'm looking at that myself. Like, grammar is off.
You need to put some pepper in here just to spice it up. You know, all the ingredients here are going all over the place like a big pasta. It's all tangled
Luigi,
up.
did you not die? Gosh. This is perfect to place somewhere in your work.
Yes.
Maybe an episode to what I refer to as cutting the deck after a big plot point in your season. To give an example of that, you just had this new commander come in, and the next episode they suddenly have this very, very low-stakes, lighthearted adventure. Also, see Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That's what I say. Sometimes it's called a breather episode. Like, there's a reason
Well,
why Ant-Man
right.
and the Wasp came out right after Infinity War.
Fair. And the reason I call it cutting the deck is it's kind of like you're reshuffling the cards, and so now you have to cut the deck again.
Right.
So that's why I refer to it that way. I don't know too many other people who use that phrase, but I do like it.
I like the phrase cutting the deck.
Perhaps it's a chapter before the biggest climax, but following a vital skirmish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this allows the reader time to breathe.
Yes.
Yes, compelling drama is likely to turn into a page burner, but banter is just as good at making people turn pages. Because with all those new paragraphs, they're inevitably shorter.
Yeah, that's the thing. I love writing banter because it's like new paragraph, new paragraph, new paragraph.
Exactly, new paragraph.
Like all this long description, I'm like, oh, so many words.
And the pages just fly by. And I am totally guilty of writing too much banter. I've
same
probably
here.
mentioned that a few too many times. One thing worth mentioning. A designated funny man is effective up to a point.
Yeah, well, it's like, yeah, there's some characters, especially played by some actors, that are meant to be joke machines, but also they have a lot of like when done well, they also do other things. Like I guess a good example I can think of is like in Aladdin, the genie played by Robin Williams makes a joke a minute, does all these references, but he's also kind of the instigator of the plot, and he's what Jafar uses to become powerful at the end, and he's what Jafar wants, and he has an emotional arc with like Aladdin being like, I could get more wishes or I could set you free. So he's more than just a joke machine, even though he is still a joke machine.
Right. And the other thing about funny men, I use men because that's the term, but any character, obviously. You know, they have their own issues in life. Just like we all have our own struggles at various times. Even the funniest comedians you'll find have some troubles, and even the people who don't generally make jokes will make jokes at some point.
Yeah.
So instead of just conditioning your audience so this one person always cracks the group up and, you know, steals the scene, change it up every so often.
Right. I mean, that's sadly...
Don't let it always fall to the one character that makes everybody laugh, because that's not realistic.
Right. Well, that's kind of the thing we're saying about, like, making it, like, you know, helping them cope, or like having, you know, people who are always funny, they have some issues. That's what happened with Robin Williams, unfortunately. Like, he was so depressed, but he always made jokes to try and cheer people up because it cheered himself up. And then,
and there's obviously hiding behind the mask of comedy.
Right, and then it eventually got to him,
too.
and it's the worst. That death hit me hard because I'm not as depressed as he is, but I am a little, and so I'm afraid the same thing's going to happen to me someday, but hopefully not. I don't think I'm as bad as he is, so, in terms of depression.
And we all have our crosses to bear. Mm-hmm. For a lot of prominent, famous people, that adds so much pressure, and rank and file people who never achieve that level of fame don't understand how it works. But I do know quite a few people, not expressly personally, but, you know, examples of people who try to cover all of their problems up by being funny. I frankly just have more fun trying to make other people feel good regardless of my own personal state.
Right.
So, anyway, we're getting really dramatic about this answer, so let's move on.
We need to move... Oh, sorry.
That said, there are times when comic relief really shouldn't be used, so when should it be avoided?
Hey, Luigi Crown de Papier, get out of here. We don't want you anymore.
Yeah, we don't need your services.
Because this is a point where comic relief should be avoided. This is serious. I'm the making the pizza! I'm sorry. I'm Italian, guys. I can joke about this. Okay.
You and I have the exact
I'm
same
getting the Alfredo and the mozzarella. And the mozzarella.
Oh, apparently, we talked before recording about making a stronger world for this podcast.
Yeah, this podcast, especially with the Captain Ritz stuff, it has a lore.
I'm just frothing with ideas now that we've made these jokes. Anyway, so when should comic relief be avoided, Donald? Go.
I've mentioned multiple times that I love a story with both comedy and tragedy, kind of like the theater masks, you know? Yeah. As when done well, they can really enhance each other and make both the funny and emotional moments hit harder. However, when done poorly, they can ruin both. Like...
Yeah.
Having a joke come out of nowhere in the middle of a dramatic scene can ruin the tension or seem too jarring for such an emotional moment. Like writers...
Unless it's in the middle of your father's eulogy.
Right, but that was fine. That was meant to be a time of remembrance. Like, it's not like... Yeah. It's not like you heard... Like, you were at your father's deathbed, and then he died. True. And you were sad for a bit, but then suddenly you were like...
Well,
who wants
to go get ice cream?
What? But then it's not like suddenly you're like, oh, well, I guess my dad's dead tired, right? Like, that would be inappropriate.
That would be inappropriate. Have respect for the.
But by the time you got to your eulogy, yeah, I think it was okay. So that's kind of what I mean. Writers should let the dramatic moment breathe, and then once the mood is settled, then crack on the jokes. You know.
I mean, I'm sorry. I can't help but think, like, after this battle is over, the general is dead on the battlefield, and they've roundly lost, and the rest of the survivors are like, oh no, what's gonna happen? And one guy just shows up and says, I know, let's have a barbecue.
Anyone like human meat? We've got the corpses.
I don't write as much as I should, given my co-host status of this podcast, but I tend to like high drama works. I, don't really go for comedy stuffs unless they're fanfics. I have done a few of those.
Matora Nakapella.
Yeah, and we did, and we worked on the Ultimate Megazoic spoof together, which is a project we should tell somebody
Which,
about.
in your instance, is fan fiction. In your case.
Yeah, in my case, because I wrote it as a fan.
Yeah.
Anyway, if there's a tightly plotted scene, you can't really stray.
Yeah.
Since you need to stay on track, comic relief probably isn't very necessary unless there's an obvious moment where it swoops in and instantly deflates the tension.
Right.
Quipping is fine in just about any circumstance. A simple little line here in the middle of the battle or something. But there are moments when you wouldn't dare quip in your own life, right? Even Donald over there.
There's definitely some moments where I shouldn't quip. And sometimes I end up doing it and ruining things. But
anyway, exactly. I mean, but that's exactly the place where you don't want to use comic relief. It's a palate cleanser, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
Well, okay, in a dramatic work, it's a palate cleanser. In a comedy, then
it's just part of it's the meat and potatoes of it. Like,
exactly.
Man, I'm hungry. I keep talking about this stuff.
Sorry, it's already lunchtime for me. So
we can take a break after we record this one, the next one.
What's one of our favorite examples of comic relief in a story and how it was used in the narrative?
I really like how the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies use comic relief overall. Like, I like how they're like, oh, this movie has a raccoon that shoots guns and has a talking tree that just says his name over and over again like a Pokemon. Like, it's silly.
Despite the fact that all of these movies have, like, different genre feels to them.
But, like, they're like, oh, it's silly. It doesn't take itself too seriously. But then that means when it does get dramatic, like, we buy it. Like that part in Infinity War when Groot, spoiler alert, but I guess, when Groot is getting turned to dust.
Infinity War, one of the highest grossing movies ever.
Right. When Groot is turning to dust and then Rocket's like, no. It's a scene where a raccoon is sad that a talking raccoon is sad that a talking tree is dying. No one laughs. It's sad.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say no one cried.
No one laughs. In fact, I watched Infinity War with friend of the show Lexi, when Groot was dying, she was audibly like, "No!" Like, that one hit her hard.
She hadn't realized it was going to happen. No, the one that hit me hard was the Peter Parker.
Yeah, that one was like, ugh.
That one's like swallowing freaking poison.
Oh, man, like, I don't want to go. Like, oh, and that's why everyone cheered.
Even though it was really cheap because we'd already heard there was going to be a freaking sequel to Spider-Man
but it was still
Homecoming.
sad because of all the characters
involved.
Like,
we know this isn't going to stick. But
some people thought that Far From Home might have taken place before Infinity War. That was a theory that.
Yeah, right. I haven't seen Far From Home yet, but
it's good.
One thing worth mentioning here is that I find it amazing that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has managed to bring comic book death into film canon now.
Finally! Well, I was going to say, when Spider-Man comes back in Endgame, the audience goes, wow. They're like, yeah, you didn't want to go, but here you are!
Even though we knew it was going to happen, yeah.
Anyways.
But you haven't mentioned your actual favorite
Yes, my favorite instance of this. Can you believe we've only been talking for 30 minutes? This episode has so much filler, but it's about the length of a standard episode still.
And that doesn't count all the edits.
Alright, but my favorite instance is probably in Captain America Civil War. This movie has a pretty dramatic story overall, what with the heroes at the odds with one another over political issues, and of course how to deal with a certain Bucky Barnes. But there's also a lot of comedy in it too. Like, the airport fight in the middle is probably the big highlight of the movie, and it has a lot of characters cracking jokes and making quips, particularly with the introduction of Spider-Man and when Ant-Man goes big. But as well as...
And considering that both of those two are known for... Well, okay. Peter Parker is known for banter, and Paul Rudd...
Yeah, I was going to say, it's Paul Rudd more than Ant-Man in that instance.
Yeah, I corrected myself.
As well as making the scene a lot of fun, the comic relief also works as an effective contrast when the final fight happens, which is much more dramatic and sad.
And nobody's trading one-liners.
Nope. The emotional punches in the finale of that movie hit so much harder than you might expect, partly because just earlier, 30 minutes earlier, the airport scene was so funny. As are the rest of the Marvel movies.
And it's kind of like, oh, fights can always be this lighthearted fare, even if they're, serious battles.
And then suddenly, nope! Because the comic relief adds the emotions at the end, because when you need that relief to feel that absence later. Like, when the jokes stop, the drama hits harder than if it were dramatic the whole time.
Which is why you said they complement each other very well.
Yeah. That's what I think.
Earlier, you talking about you have to mix both, because if you're all down, then how far down can you go? If you're all up, then how far up can you go?
Right. That's why
it doesn't work unless you have more of a cyclical alternation between.
Well,
them.
that's why that's why I try to do for my Megazoic books, because they're pretty goofy overall, but there's serious moments, and especially like in the later ones when it gets serious, it gets pretty serious, and I want people to really feel the humor's absence. So,
yeah. Personally, again, there are a lot of decent examples, I suppose, and I had trouble landing on one.
Right.
But one of the things that I really like is comic relief characters. Some bumbling and innocent, but they ruin, or grace, depending on your opinion, every scene they enter. In other words, they're inessential to the narrative itself, and are utilized as like a chaser after other stuff.
Right.
Maybe before in some instances. But one particular thing I feel worth mentioning, even in Mel Brooks films, and I adore Mel Brooks
yes.
films, the comedy pauses in appropriate spots.
Right, exactly.
Obviously, if you have a main character who's got some comedic chops, using those in sensible places would be great.
Right.
Much like any big climactic scene needs to tower above the others, in a work with mostly gags, some need to soar above the rank and file.
Right. Ludicrous speed!
But again,
go! Like that kind of thing. I don't know if that's what's the
matter,
biggest
Colonel
joke in
Sanders? Chicken?
What is the biggest joke in that movie? Like, what's the big highlight, I guess? We shouldn't get into it. We'll just talk about it the whole...
Well, I mean, everybody would argue it in circles, which I think is kind of the point, because there is no accounting for various tastes in your readership.
Right.
So, good luck. I would say, though, that, we're talking about not using it in comedies in this particular episode, so since your comedy likely isn't your primary directive, letting it be secondary is okay in my book.
Right. No, exactly.
You don't need to make comedy the forefront of a story that's supposed to be about a coming-of-age tale,
right.
For example.
Like,
you don't need to have comedy be at the forefront in Middle-earth.
There is comedy in Lord of the Rings, yes, but it's not like...
I know.
Yeah, so that's the point. That's not about
overpowering. It's not overpowering. It's something that fans can appreciate. The audience will appreciate because the rest of it works so well.
Certainty of death.
As opposed
small
to...
chance of success. What are we waiting for? That's from Lord of the Rings. Gimli says that.
Correct. Anyways,
yes,
there's probably more worth saying about comic relief, but we have covered it in a couple other episodes as well. So for here today, I think we should probably call it
yes,
good.
That's it
but
for
if you happen
this
to have
part
questions,
of the random grab bag.
Yeah, that's it for this episode, since it's not a set.
Yeah.
Right? But if you have any questions, please get in touch with us. Let us know. If you would like to do that, you can visit the Matthew Donald Creator webpage and contact there, or your own email system, and the email to use is in the description, but to say it here, Matt D, with 2 T's, at Matthew Donald Creator. If you have general, specific questions, episode ideas for either of us, we share Matt D in common, so if you'd specify David or Donald, that'd be greatly appreciated.
And if you have stuff you want us to read out, we do in the last episodes of our sets, usually, so...
Absolutely, especially if you'd like us to share the content, please let us know. We respect your privacy, but we'd love to share those things with other fans, so let us know if that's okay as well, especially if it's something that we need to address for more people.
Right.
That might be worth doing. So
yeah.
Just let us know. However, if you're interested in following Donald personally,
yes.
He's got some own social media stuff, so go ahead.
You can follow me at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, at Matthew Donald 64 on Twitter, and Matthew Donald 64 on Instagram. Well, why 64? Because I've only got 64 days left to live, David. You gotta help me. I've been injected with a virus that'll eat my insides like the acid from a typical Arby's sandwich. You gotta help me break into this facility and get the cure. You gotta help me, David. You gotta help me live.
Donald, you named your Twitter handle way further back than just 64 days,
Wait.
so...
You're right. Then that must be...
Oh no, Donald didn't have a chance to say any funny last words.
It's okay, that doesn't matter. I just got the shot earlier, and I am fine. So here you go.
And now we're canonizing comic book death in our podcast.
Oh, look, I'm back!
Well, I mean, we already had done it with Luigi, so this should not surprise anybody. Anyhow, thanks for paying attention to our episode about comic relief, not just in comedies, listeners. We'll be back to you with more on a different topic next week as part of this grab bag.
Yep.
But until then...
Keep writing, I'm Matt Donald.
And I'm Matt David. Keep ridding, listeners.
And I'm a Luigi. I'm not going to let that go.